What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, Denise Salcedo, and we are just days away from AEW Full Gear. So with me here today is the VP of Show and Creative Coordination of AEW. Ladies and gents, please welcome QT Marshall. What's up, QT? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm awesome. It's nice to have you on. I feel like I haven't seen you in what feels like years now at this point.
Yeah, probably since you were in Dallas, right?
I believe so, yes. Oh my gosh, I think that was like 2022. I don't even remember.
Oh,
That's so wild because the wrestling world, it just moves so fast.
Yeah. If you don't keep going with it, it'll just keep going on without you.
That is true. That's definitely true. So let's get to it. I want to kick things off. As I just mentioned, Full Gear is only a couple of days away. And you're going to be teaming up with somebody here that everybody knows, Big Boom AJ, taking on Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero. A lot of fun stuff. You've worked with AJ before, one-on-one, his first match in AEW. That was kick-ass. Talk to us how you feel heading into this matchup.
You know, it's pretty exciting. I mean, I've known AJ for over 20 years. It was, Sanjay and I had this idea to bring him in and try to do something fun. I've said it before, it took a lot of convincing, which I didn't think it would, considering he used to be a wrestler. I figured, wrestling in front of your hometown would be pretty easy, an easy sell. But he finally agreed, and then we agreed to do the one-on-one, which obviously I thought was incredible in the way it turned out for us. And, coincidentally, AEW has been on a big uptick ever since. I don't think it was because of AJ, but I do think that, it did bring some new eyes on the company and so on and so forth. And I was just really excited. And the idea that Tony, he really liked what they brought to the table when it came to just their overall presentation and again, bringing new eyes on the company and stuff. So I guess he locked them down to a contract, and, we've used them sporadically, on a lot of the 0 hours, but now the 0 hour has turned into the tailgate, which is, on TNT, which is pretty cool because this will be his first ever, I believe, his first ever televised professional wrestling match, at least for a major company, So I'm excited about it. I mean, we were trying to think, what could we do? And it's like it's a full circle story, right? So we were like arch nemesises, last year, turn a year later, same building, almost a year to the date, and we're going to be teaming together. So it's pretty cool. Boom and doom. I'm excited. I shouldn't say never, but I've never been a babyface for a major company in a big building, right? A lot of my babyface work was done during the pandemic, and definitely never in New Jersey. I mean, I had a couple matches in early AEW, but when I became babyface, it was mostly during the pandemic in front of nobody. So New Jersey is my hometown as well. I'm going to have my grandparents there. My father will be there as well. So I'm just pretty excited for it.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting, especially like you said, like you get to be there in front of your family, you get to be a baby face, kind of like soak it all in. It's going to be an awesome moment. And you mentioned, sort of Big Boom AJ bringing in like new eyeballs to AEW. And it really did, because I remember my little brother was like telling me like, oh yeah, AJ is going to wrestle in AEW. And I turned it, I'm like, what? I've never heard you mention wrestling at all once.
Right.
I didn't even know you knew what AEW was, but that's what that did because of TikTok.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Everyone has like their own perception of what wrestling has to be. And I'm a firm believer in that wrestling can be everything. As long as, in my opinion, the wrestling doesn't insult the audience intelligence. That's my only rule. Like when I teach, it's my only rule. Just don't insult the people that are giving you the money to come watch. Other than that, you could do comedy, you could have hardcore matches. I mean, you could do high flying stuff, and that's kind of what AEW brings. It's all elite wrestling, right? And I know we say it's where the best wrestle, but really what it truly is it's whoever's like at that elite level at what they do, what they bring to the table. And I truly believe that, which is like AJ with TikTok. I mean, he's a major influencer on TikTok, right? So he's like an elite level TikToker, streamer or whatever it is. So I just think it was a really good thing to bring in. It's fun for me because I don't really wrestle as much, but it gives me a chance because, my wrestling character, I guess you would say, it can kind of do anything, right? I could be featured in a more serious role, or I could just have fun. I like to have fun. I like to get bounced around and, once in a while and just take some bumps and so on and so forth. So for me, this was like a no-brainer. We talked to Tony about it. He was pretty sold right away. I mean, the first time around, it was a bit of convincing, but once he saw what they brought to the table and, what it really did for everybody, and especially with Big Justice and Rizzler, and, I mean, Rizzler's really blown up ever since, right? So
The
I think
pop
just,
he got when he came
yeah,
out
it's
that one time, I
incredible.
was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I know. So, and then even like when we first started wrestling, that's all they were chanting is, "We want Rizzler." I was like, well, we're going to give him to you at the end, but we can't do it right now. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm excited for it. I think, it'll be a great way to kick off the show, right? To kick off on the tailgate brawl and stuff, and just hopefully get everyone excited for, what the pay-per-view is going to bring.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. By the way, it's so funny because I'm like, okay, you've worked with Big Boom, AJ, Justice, the Rizzler, but then also, Paul Walter Hauser. So you're almost like the wrestler that's like in it with like the, other kinds of celebrities, right?
Yeah, I mean, it started with Shaq, right? Like, Shaq wanted to do something, so I had to train him and stuff. And I love that guy; he's such a great guy, and he really put the effort in. And that's kind of where Tony was like, "Oh, you could kind of be like this celebrity guy." And then with AJ, it really worked out. And then Paul Walter Hauser came to us and said, "Hey, I want to do something, but it has to be on Ring of Honor. I want to do something a little more serious and." I'd like it to be you because I've known him for a long time. I was like, yeah, we could do something. And then I was really interested in doing it because I think the audience, especially that hardcore audience in Philadelphia, the ECW arena or 2300 arena, I think they were expecting a match like I had with AJ. So knowing that we were going to do the complete opposite, it really shocked them. And I mean, a lot of people said it was one of the best matches on the show. And he worked really hard, and like I said, not everything went as in his mind as planned, but he called some audibles out there, and it was a really cool thing to do. And like I said, if nothing else in AEW, I've had a lot of cool experiences that I get to, I was first time on the first ever Blood and Guts, not in the match, but on the show. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Brody Lee, I had his first singles match. Paul White, AJ, Paul Walter Hauser, like it's just a lot of cool stuff that I've been able to do. And I think a lot of it just comes down to the idea that one, maybe I don't take myself so seriously that there's nothing beneath me in wrestling. I've always had that mentality. And two, I just like to have a good time. So, and then there's trust there with, with Tony and the rest of the, the rest of the company. So.
No, it's huge because, these people that are coming from the outside are going into this. And, sure, like, they have like, for example, like, some of them have had, like Big Boom AJ has had the wrestling experience, right? And Shaq is an athlete and all that, but it's totally different to like go out there and like put on a match, right? So they need somebody that they can trust to go out there and put something together like this and make them look good, but also be safe and just everything that pro wrestling entails. So that's a really cool badge of honor to have that you're trusted with that from AEW to like do that. I want to rewind a second here to Shaq because you got to train him, and I'm like, yo, how do you train someone like Shaquille O'Neal to go out there and, do something wrestling? Granted, I know he's had other bits and moments before, but it's entirely different. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He put in a lot of work. I mean, I would do the normal class till about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then he would show up and I would stay later with him, and he really put in the work. I mean, he had ideas of what he wanted to do. It was just teaching him how to do it without, really hurting somebody, especially at the time it was going to be Cody, right? So obviously we couldn't, really injure him. But yeah, he took it so seriously. It really, it tells to what kind of athlete he is, which is why he's at the, he was at the top of the basketball world, and he's basically on top of every business that he ever goes into because he takes it very seriously. He puts all the effort in, and I mean, he really, I wish he would have been able to do that in front of, 10, 15,000 people instead of, in Jacksonville, but we still had a good crowd there. And I know he had a lot of fun, and I know Tony would really like him back. He was in the ambulance and then he disappeared. We never saw him again. So who knows, we'll leave the door open, but you never know.
Yeah, we got to follow up on that. That would be very freaking cool. I mean, Shaq's a legend. I'm from LA, so like, I've been a Shaquille O'Neal fan since I was a little girl. So it's like seeing him do go out there and do that stuff is pretty kick ass. So now I do kind of want to, sort of shift this interview a little bit because you, not only are you obviously wrestling and stuff, you get matches here and there, but like you said, you got a lot of stuff that you do behind the scenes as well. You wear very many different hats. So how do you find that balance between like, okay, this is a part of the office job that I do as a VP, but then also like, hey, go out there and have fun. So how do you find that balance?
Well, the best part is, I've been wrestling a very long time, so I don't really need a lot of preparation the day of. Like normally on a day when I know I have to wrestle, I'll get there before everybody. I'll get dressed, I'll get ready, and then I sit in the office in my gear and I do, my backstage work until it's time to go out there. I mean, the last time I went out there, I think I want to say I talked to my partner Aaron Solo about 4 minutes before our music hit, and that was the first conversation I had with him all day. So we went out there and we did our thing, So so I really try to put the office job first. Try to make sure that the show's in order with Tony and everything. Everyone knows what they're doing that day, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, that's what my job really is, and the wrestling is more just for fun on the side. So I try to really put that in the forefront. So this way it never comes back to me that, hey, we can't have you wrestling anymore because it's going to take away from what you do back here.
That makes a lot of sense. And also like the panic mode set in of thinking of like, oh my God, 4 minutes before, let's talk about what we're doing. I feel like full panic mode thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, and the other thing is too, I mean, I'm not trying to put myself over, but I don't really do a lot. So it's not like I have to go out there and remember, 200 different things. I'm pretty basic. I think the fans would agree. Definitely the cage match people, they'll agree that I'm pretty basic. So I try to keep it simple and, just get the audience involved as much as possible.
I was about to say, how often do you look at cage match? Because honestly, I feel like I only go to look and make sure like, oh, this was this person's last match with this person. Did this person ever wrestle this person? But I never actually look at like cage match ratings though,
Yeah, when I was in Ring of Honor back in the day, they used to have a Ring of Honor forum, and those people were pretty mean towards a lot of the talent. So I learned at a very early start that, you just have to listen to the live audience, the ones that truly are paying the money, that are coming and they're spending their time and their energy. And it's like after the matches, a lot of guys will come up and they'll say like, hey, how do you think I did? And it's like, well, just, did you hear them? Did you hear the people? Because they kind of tell you how you did, especially AEW fans, they're very vocal.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, you're put in a position where you're not going to have the most energetic audience or so on and so forth, but that's our job. And that's what we really have to go out there and try to do,
No, that is 100% spot on, especially because like when it comes to AEW, you guys have really set this bar very, very high when it comes to in-ring work. And I mean, I feel like I sound like a broken record after every single pay-per-view. It's like, that was the best pay-per-view of the year. That was the greatest AEW pay-per-view ever. This is match of the year candidate, all of that. But that also brings a lot of a bigger magnifying glass to AEW whenever, and this, QT, and we're not going to, shy away from any of this, but that AEW is constantly like, if they don't do it, like if they do like a decent show, everyone's like, putting their 2 cents in on it, right? And so there comes a lot of that where the magnifying glass is on AEW. Do you just like, is that easy to ignore? Does it fuel you guys to like, continue pushing harder because you guys have set that bar very high?
I think from a talent perspective, they just go out there and they do their absolute best every time. I think the goal is always to hit a home run. I think sometimes we hit doubles, we hit triples, sometimes we hit singles. I think it's very rare, personally, that we strike out, especially on a pay-per-view event. I mean, our pay-per-views are, it's the top stars that are wrestling each other in some of the greatest matches you're ever going to see. Our TV show, I think a lot of people get hooked into, well, the wrestling I'm used to is X, Y, and Z. That's okay, right? Like, we're an alternative. I think when the company started, everyone said it was an alternative and no one believed it. They thought it was going to be, WWE 2.0 or something like that. Like a lot of companies try to do, they try to follow what WWE does because they're, such a major, brand. But that's not what we do, right? And it is what it is, right? So Tony, when he created AEW, this is something that he really thought about and decided like, this is the wrestling that I want to present because this is what I love. And I think there's an audience for that. Is it the biggest audience? Maybe not, but it's the most passionate. It's the ones that are there every week, and it's the ones that will fully support us, And I always joke about, if they just wanted to tell more friends about us, you know what I mean? But again, sometimes, the show that we bring, it might not be the one that, the casual person is really interested in. So they really have to try to sit there and they have to learn a little bit. They might have to do some background checks on who these people are and so on and so forth. And some people just don't have time for that. But the ones that do, like I said, I mean, I see those fans every single week, wherever we go, and they are the most passionate, and they will literally argue with anybody on social media or anything like that to stand up for us. So I think it's really great. And I know that, when we do a pay-per-view or we do any TV event or anything, even if it's a Ring of Honor or something, or a house show, we're going to go out there, we're going to put on the absolute best show we can, because as talent, of course we want, as many fans as we possibly can, but we also don't want to turn off the fans that we have, just to try to get more fans in. And I think Ring of Honor back in the day, they tried that when I first started, and I actually got lumped into that talent pool of like, oh, they're trying to get casual fans, so they brought this guy in because he's bigger and he's in shape. And I'm like, no, that's not what it is at all, but at the time they really thought so they lost a little bit of their hardcore fan base in trying to get the other, and they never got them back until later on. So we're just sticking to our guns and doing exactly what we do best.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to that, like the hardcore audience, it really is something like when you lose a hardcore audience, like you lose them, right? Like they're gone forever or whatever. They find other interests. So I do think AEW has pretty much like held on to them because they know what they want. Like I always go into shows going, come on, like I know AEW knows we want this and this is what we want. And it's one of the things that I think kind of shines through a whole lot with the shows and makes the shows, really, really stand out. Now, I'm curious because you have been with AEW since the very beginning. Like you have seen this company grow to certain levels. Did you ever think AEW was going to get to the point where it was when you think of all of the major successes, Wembley Stadium, TV deals, Max, all of the things that they've accomplished in this short amount of time? Did you ever think that was going to happen?
So I'm not going to lie, I did. And only because the business side of it, that Tony is very well connected and he understands that part of it, right? The analytics and, just that side of everything, right? But then on top of it, because the talent, we have so much talent, to the point where some people will say we have too many, which, okay, not everyone is going to get featured every week. But what that does do is if Darby Allin, and I'm just going to throw his name out there, but, gets lit on fire and he can't wrestle the next week, we have a whole bunch of other talent that could come in and they can perform and so on and so forth, right? And it's kind of, a very competitive industry, obviously, to start. But then on top of that, everyone's trying to fight for this TV time. So when they go out there, they're not just going to go out there and mail it in. They're going to go out there and put on the best performance they possibly can. And I think that's what really has helped us, because the fans, I think they see that, right? They might not agree with everything that, we do, but they do see that we're trying our absolute best and we're trying to put on the best show for them. So I think that is what has helped us. And then, and we just have big goals, right? Like I remember when we did the first ever Grand Slam, we were going to go to Arthur Ashe, and wrestling's never been held there and so on. And we just knew like, okay, well, we know what we have on, on the card and so on and so forth, and we're going to do really well. So, like I said, I honestly always thought it's just a matter of putting everything in the right place at the right time to make it all work.
What do you think has been like the biggest thing that AEW has done, or like your favorite thing, whether it's on screen, like moments that really changed AEW history, on screen moments, or even like business accomplishments that the company has done?
I think that, the way we handled the pandemic was really cool, right? Having the talent in the audience and supporting everybody and so on and so forth. And then just even having AEW Dark and the idea that we were able to bring in so much independent talent and not only, pay them so they could survive, because a lot of them couldn't do any shows at the time. But then on top of that, just having that content, and almost like it was like a developmental for a lot of us that were able to go out there and because we were not under the pressure of being on live TV, we were able to do a lot of fun stuff, and a lot of acts got over, with the fan base, because those fans couldn't come to live shows. So the only way they could watch was through, YouTube and TV and stuff. So I think that was really cool the way we handled that. Obviously, all in the first year in Wembley, 80,000 people, that was incredible. I mean, I was there, I went out there just to look around and see, and it was just absolutely incredible that we were able to put that many people in a building. for AEW, right? For not WWE. That's always like hey, everyone always kind of tries to compare. And it's like, again, the products are completely different, but at the end of the day, we're doing just the same types of things, right? So, and we're only 6 years in now. So imagine where we'll be in, 20, 30 years. So I'm excited for it. I mean, I've been here since the absolute beginning, and I've seen, some ups and downs and a lot more ups. And I just think we really just take everything on the chin that we get and we just keep going.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's like the best way to like go, because I think you guys have proven that, hey, there's a lot happening here at AEW that can continue to grow. I remember that Wembley show, seeing the sea of people and talking to people outside the building, and everyone was telling me like, oh, I'm from this part of the world. I'm from this part of the world. I'm like, I haven't even heard of some of these places. Like, this is incredible. Seeing all of these people converge together for AEW. I think that was the moment that I realized, like, oh shit, like this is bigger than anything you had maybe envisioned in your head. Like, I don't know, if I'm sure you guys probably felt that way, where it was like, okay, like we're really like, big time.
Yeah. I mean, it was really incredible. Like I said, every show that we do that, we try to make bigger, or, than not just a regular Dynamite or so on and so forth. I mean, it's incredible to see. And like you said, there's so many people that travel to come to our shows. It's not like, when we're in Dallas, it's all people from Dallas, And now we try to make it a little like we had StarCast last year, where we're trying to make it more of a destination to come. So you're not just there for the 4-hour show or 6-hour show or whatever it could be. We try to get you there and try to give you a weekend of events and so on and so forth. So
you mentioning that you've been there from the very beginning, you have gotten to work closely with Tony Khan, and you have seen him from like day one, booker, president, owner, all of the titles that come with the job, to today. Having worked with him closely, like, how would you say he's evolved in this role and everything that he's taken on with AEW?
I mean, it's hard, right? Like, we don't have a giant writing team. We don't have, we have a very small circle that, and it all starts with him, and he bounces ideas off of us, but he also bounces ideas off of talent. And I think he's gotten to the point now where he's very good about, collaborating with the talent, but also keeping his vision. Because I think in the past, there were some times that he probably, because of who the talents were at the time or whatever, he might have let them do a little bit different things than what he had actually envisioned. And it might have hurt a little bit. So I think he's been a lot better about that. And obviously, he's just the greatest boss to have. I mean, he's just a great person, and he really cares about, not just you in the ring, but also behind the scenes and, taking care of the talent and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think he was meant to do this, honestly. I genuinely do. And like I said, a lot of people, they think, or they might have their opinions about his booking or philosophies or whatever it is, but it's his company. It's what he wants to do. And I run my own company in Georgia. We have, a weekly television show. And, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not easy, right? To present weekly television and multiple shows, storylines, keeping talent happy, all these things. And I think he just has figured out a really good way to do it.
Would you say that's one of the biggest struggles, is like trying to please everybody, the fans, the talent, the everything? Because you think about like this job, and it's just like, how do you please everybody? You can't. It's not realistic.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. But, that's where guys like myself and Sanjay, we come into play, when we can talk to talent and kind of explain to them, right? Like, not everyone wants to go out there and have a 4-minute match and not be the world champion, right? And at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. I'm a talent. Everyone wants to be world champion. Everyone wants to be on the top. They want the most TV time, so on and so forth. And unfortunately, there's only so few spots for that. And I think instead of, being upset about it, there's multiple things you can do, right? You have to figure out why you're not in the position you're in, or that you want to be in. And I think a lot of the talent, they don't realize that. And that's just not just in AEW. That's everywhere I've ever been, myself included. Like, we're all delusional wrestlers, right? I always say that. And what we see when we look at ourselves and our matches and so on and so forth, like, someone else might not see. So it's just a matter of how we figure it out and try to, again, just keep moving forward. But I think the best part about Tony is he's very honest with the talent. And, if you want to be somewhere in the company and you're not where you want to be, you just kind of ask. And then there's probably reasons why you're not, right? And I've always been the type of person that has been honest with everybody. And if there is a reason why, I kind of let them know, because at the end of the day, it's the only way you're going to get better.
Yes, exactly that. So, kind of thinking about like everything that you do, like I said, you wear very many different hats, right? Like that's what these types of roles, these types of jobs are. What would you say is your favorite part of the day? I'm sure a lot comes with it, and I'm sure it's hectic, and some days you're like, but your favorite part of the job, what would you consider that to be?
I mean, I really enjoy like speaking to the talent about what they're going to do that evening, trying to help them put it together, and seeing the vision that obviously Tony has, but also what they have, and put it together, and then what happens afterwards, right? And then hopefully they hit a home run. And I think that, to me, that's always the best feeling. There's so many talents that I work with, because we have such a large company of talent, right? So it's like Sanjay has his people, I have mine, Jen has hers, RJ has his. And again, it all starts with Tony, but it's like, all right, how do we delegate and try to make sure that everyone gets the information that's needed? And when they do everything that is presented and it works, I think that's probably one of the best feelings ever. It's kind of like, when you have to coach a match and you're helping them put stuff together and so on and so forth. And then when they do it and it works, it's almost the same feeling as when you're actually out there doing it, except it doesn't hurt, So I always say that to me is probably some of the best stuff.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, like this that we thought about doing, we executed it and people enjoyed it. Like, I'm sure that's very satisfying for the entire team, right? Because it's a team effort. So, you mentioned kind of like, working with the talent, that being one of your favorite things. One of the people that you got to work with on screen was Harley Cameron. And Harley has just been like magnificent to see on the show. That she's so funny and she's very, very talented. How have you felt about like, you were one of the first people that got to like, introduce her into the show, and we got to see her become what she's become now. How have you felt seeing her growth?
It's my favorite hire. I always say that. When Tony, after we split up with the factory and stuff, Tony had this idea for this QTV stuff. And he said, I think if we can introduce a female talent. And I was searching. And then she was training with Sean Spears and Billy Gunn. And, I reached out to her, and after like 1 5-minute conversation, I was like, this is it, that she's the one. She has a degree in journalism, even though, we're not really going to be journalists. But just from talking to her, I could tell like, okay, this girl's a star. So it was just a matter of, once I stopped doing the wrestling part of the QTV stuff, we started, I think we put her with Saray, and we started giving her more chances, and then she started wrestling and everything. And again, she's so new when it comes to in ring, but she's not when it comes to being a performer. And I think she's really just, like I always joke about it. Like she's my number one that I brought in, and I'll take full credit for bringing her in. I can't take credit for what she does, but she makes me proud every week.
Oh man, that's so awesome. I really love seeing that. She's a very fun person. We've had her here on the channel, and I swear I was like, couldn't even keep a straight face the entire time. She was making me laugh so much. Now, KT, I do want to ask, because this is somebody that you have worked with both, outside of AEW, in AEW, who's unfortunately, no longer with AEW, but is gone on to do some amazing things, and that is Cody Rhodes. As somebody that knows him very well, how have you felt sort of seeing Cody go back to WWE and do all of the things that he's done? WrestleMania main events, championships. He's become the guy.
Yeah, honestly, I think the first time I ever met him was in 2017, and we started to become friends and so on and so forth. And I always knew his vision. I didn't know the vision at the time, definitely wasn't going back to WWE and so on and so forth. But the vision was always to kind of change the wrestling industry. Right. And they started with All In, him and the Bucks and Kenny, and then Tony. And it was like, we're just going to keep changing, the business as a whole. And so I think when he had the opportunity to go, he kind of saw it as another way to really, he was going to be the first one to really jump from, AEW to WWE. And plus, I think, when they told him he's going to re-debut at WrestleMania, they were going to let him keep his music and all these things. He was just going to a different company, but he was still going to be the same Cody Rhodes. So I think, obviously for him, and with his dream of being the WWE World Champion, the title that his dad never held, and so on and so forth, I just think, it was meant to be. A lot of people, I think, they see that, especially talent, and they're like, well, I'm going to go do the same thing. And it's like, well, that story is probably only going to work for that one guy, right? Because that is his story. And it was just kind of like meant to happen, right? So it's unfortunate that, of course, he works there and not with us anymore. But I mean, he's still my best friend. I'm the godfather of his daughter, Liberty. So like, we still are in touch almost daily, and he still gives me advice and helps me out and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's just very exciting to see all the good, the great things that he's doing and how happy he is. That's more than anything. That's really all I care about. And that was when he was in AEW, was the same thing. Was like, let's just, at the end of the day, wrestling should be fun. It is a business, but if you're leaving the building that night and you're upset, so I always tell everybody, like, if there's something that's bothering you, just tell somebody, because you don't want to go home for a full week and just have that, just festering inside of you. And then the next week something happens. Right. So, yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think he's done everything that he set out to do.
Yeah, it's like seeing him and when they put together the documentary and kind of like showing that, I think everybody instantly was like, where's the part two? Where's the part two? Because there is a lot in the fact that he went in and he did what he said he was going to do. You got to root for the guy, right? Like seeing someone finish their story, get their dream, like you can't help but to root for that. But we are seeing this place now where we do see wrestlers ping pong back and forth, right? And there are a lot of former AEW talents that are currently holding gold in WWE. In a way, though, I see this as like a, how do I explain this? I see this as a like, oh shit, like AEW helped, help these people get on a certain map, get on a certain plateau, and WWE, noticing them and kind of going from there. I know it's a complicated thing to discuss, but how do you feel seeing that, sort of happen where you do see WWE talent go to AEW, but also some of your talent go to WWE?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's whoever the boss is, right? Like, so Tony's our boss. If Tony sees something in somebody, obviously he's going to create ideas that's going to help these people get to that level. I think some of those talents, whether we saw or, Tony saw that in them, or there was just situations that maybe they weren't, the happiest with. Again, this is our lives. It's our bodies that we're putting on the line. So you have to be happy. And if going somewhere else is going to make you happy, or if you're over there and coming here is going to make you happy, great. As long as you go out there and put on the best, show that you can and put maximum effort, like I'm all for it. I think, it's instead of grinding on the independents, if you're in AEW and someone else sees you and they offer you something that you don't feel that you're getting here, great. You know what I mean? I always, like, a couple of those talents, I remember talking to them myself, like, hey, is there anything we could do? Or is this just, hey, well, this is a lot of talent. For instance, when I had the school, they all come in and they say, oh, it was my dream to be in AEW. And I'm talking like 2019, 2020. And I'm thinking, like, can't be your dream to be in AEW because we just started. You know what I mean? Like, so your dream might be to be a professional wrestler or to be in WWE, whatever it is. So again, if that's your goal and that's what you wanted to do and AEW has shaped you to do that, fantastic. And obviously if you leave on the right terms, which I'm almost positive every single one of them has, there's the door's always open. And I think Tony's really good about that. So, and it's not going to ever hurt us to get somebody back that went to a larger stage, and then came back. So again, I think it's just better for the business, right? That there's two companies that are paying, great money for everybody. And it just makes the industry as a whole better. I mean, just for everybody, not just the talent, for backstage workers, for people like you, right? That you can do these interviews, like, it just keeps the competitive edge going, and it's excellent for everybody. So yeah, I don't ever fault anyone for leaving to be happy. In 2023, I left AEW, right? And there was a lot of reasons that people thought, and mainly the main reason was I just wasn't happy. I had to figure out what was going to make me happy. And honestly, what made me happy was not having to come to work every week with my gear bag, wondering what could happen. So when I spoke to Tony afterwards, we decided, like, hey, I'm just not going to wrestle. And I was like, great. I can come there with a backpack. I don't have to worry. I just worry about the office work. I don't have to stress about, if you need someone for match number 3 or whatever, and I know I'm a great guy to do it. Now I don't have to say, oh, that could be me, And then if he says no, then I get, in my feelings and so on. It's not worth it. So it's much easier for me to just go to work with a backpack and, help him put on the best show possible. And for me, like I said, that made me very happy. And it was a very easy decision for me.
I'm glad that first of all, I do agree with you in terms of like people making decisions for themselves, because at the end of the day, it's their careers, it's their lives. And then from a talent, from a fan perspective, as somebody who watches both products and covers both products, I almost feel like it keeps things very fresh, right? Because you're seeing these people in new storylines, and you're like, oh shit, like I just saw this person do this, now they're doing that. Oh, it's a whole thing, right? But also from like a from a fan standpoint, is you discover new people and you see them in different lights, like Ricochet, like getting to see him in AEW and do the things that he's doing now. Like it is very interesting. Now, for your experience, when you chose to come back to AEW and make that decision with Tony Khan to say, hey, I'm gonna do the office job, and that's gonna be my main focal point. To make that decision, it's definitely a career shift for you, even though you're still doing some wrestling, outside of AEW. But were you cool with that? Did that take some time for you to like process, or were you just like, let's go, I'm here and I'm ready?
Yeah, honestly, no, it was pretty simple for me. I mean, especially knowing that I could go work for anyone else besides WWE. Now, I didn't realize WWE was going to buy up every single company to kind of hinder a lot of that. But I mean, still, I can pick and choose. And one of the other things I was able to do was, start my own independent wrestling organization, which is what I really cared about. So, when I want to wrestle, I just wrestle there. You know what I mean? And then when these opportunities like Full Gear come up or something like that, if I could throw my name in and make it work. But I think it's helped overall. It's also helped with our company where, every time I was put in a position on television, I think the perception was that it was coming from me. And that really bothered me because I never once, came up with ideas or, it was always like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? Would you be willing to do this? What if we put these guys with you? What if you went out there, as Powerhouse Hobbs' manager? And I was like, sure, that's what you want me to do. I'm going to do it because you pay me and I can make anything work. And I think there was a lot of people that were a little upset by those things because they know how close I am to the office and so on and so forth and to Tony. But it was like, that wasn't what it was at all. And there was even some talent that kind of thought that about me. And then I had to sit with them and speak to them and let them know, like, none of these are my ideas. If you think, someone else is reporting that I want to be the biggest star in the world, but yet you think I'm pitching to be someone's manager, like none of that makes sense. You know what I mean? So to me, this is much easier. I don't have to worry about it now. Because like I said, anything that I'm going to do, I'm sure people are going to say, well, that's because of his job behind the scenes. And it's like, to take away a lot of hard work and stuff that I've put in over the years. When I first started at AEW, I wasn't supposed to wrestle anyway. It was just, we hit the pandemic and, I was teaming with Dustin once in a while. And because they wanted somebody with him that could kind of, just be his partner and so on and so forth. And then when the pandemic hit, was just based off of trust. Like, okay, well, can you, do the first match for, Mr. Brody Lee, because I know it's live TV. There's no audience. And I mean, who better than a guy that was probably training in front of no audience in a wrestling facility for 15 years? You know what I mean? So a lot of these opportunities, like I said, they didn't come from me. They weren't my ideas. If anyone thinks that I pitched to wrestle, Paul White and lose in 3 minutes on a pay-per-view, I think, and then a lot of times I get flack for stuff like that, where it's like, well, why is he in this match? And it's like, I would love to put someone else in that match to go out there and lose in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, of course, but at the end of the day, I'm asked to do it. I'm just going to do what I'm told because I like the paycheck every 2 weeks, and that's really what it comes down to for me. This is a job. And that's the way I was brought into the industry. And that's kind of like my philosophy on everything. There are times where you're not going to love what you're doing, and you can always, try to change stuff and ask for certain things that will make you happy. But if the answer is no, the answer is no.
One of the cool things you got to do was go over to AAA in Mexico, and you were even champion, Latin American champion over there. Talk to us about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, that was another thing at the time where it was one of those, okay, I'm not going to get this opportunity in AEW. So where else can I do this? Where can I be presented a little bit differently? And I spoke to Conan, and through my relationship with Penta, I guess that idea came up, and then one thing led to another, and Conan was very adamant about putting me in a higher part of the card. And he just said, I believe in you. I think that you can do great things. I don't, and of course, I don't know why they're doing this with you over there. And I just told him, like, at the end of the day, man, it's what I'm given, and I'm going to do the absolute best with it. If you're giving me a prominent spot on the show, I'm going to do the absolute best. So it really worked out. It was a lot of fun. And then obviously when they got bought out by WWE, that kind of put a hinder on stuff. So I'd love to go back to Mexico. I had a lot of fun there. I've talked to Rocky about CMLL before and stuff, but my schedule with it being the way it is, especially with the stuff that I have at home as well with my independent show, it is a lot harder. So, and I, try not to travel as much, but it was a great experience. And like I said, when I won that title, I really tried my best to defend it every single place I possibly could. I think I had the most title defenses ever. And I only had the title for like 3 months. But I made deals with promoters all over the country, in England, everywhere, where I could just go defend the title and put some prestige into it, just to kind of show AAA at the time, like, hey, you made the right decision,
That's very cool, because I'm sure you ran into a lot of like cool opportunities, experiences in different parts of the world. That stuff to me is always like the coolest thing, whenever you can go travel to a different place and get to, perform in front of a different audience. And audiences, require different, they have different needs. Like in Mexico, they're very into, the heels and the baby faces. Like that goes a long way. I feel like it goes even further than it does here in the United States. So it almost challenges you to do something a little bit different, to flex a different muscle than you normally do.
Yeah, I mean, it was they're very big on obviously the character presentations, but also, you're not going to put someone in a rear chin lock and sit there for a couple minutes, not that we do that in AEW either, or even WWE doesn't really do it anymore, but like the old school philosophy like that is kind of out the window. So when I went to Mexico, I really had a chance to show that athletic side of me, the dives, the flips, all that stuff that I could do. I just always chose not to, because in my mind, especially at the time in AEW, the first time I teamed with Cody, I did do some of that stuff, and, the crowd was going crazy for me. And now as a heel, I knew that wasn't my job anymore, right? So it's like, I'm not going to go do that, because at the end of the day, the way I was taught is like, I just want to be the bad guy. I want to get booed. And if there's one fan that is not booing me, I'm not doing my job, because it's only making it that much harder for the guy that, we want them to support. And I think being in that middle area is very difficult. And there's a lot of that in wrestling in general. And especially on the independents, there's a lot of that, because, they're independents and they want to sell their t-shirts and they want to make their own money. So I can't fault them for it. But I always joke about, like, when I was on the independents, I would try to make a deal with the babyface I was working with, like, however many t-shirts you normally sell, when you start working with me, anything after that average that you normally sell, I should probably get a cut of, because it's, the reason you're probably going to get more over is because we're working together, or because I can either help you or I can hurt you in that aspect, and we would joke about that. Of course, I don't want any of their money, but it was just, there's the idea of like, hey, we're working together here. And usually the babyface is the one that reaps the benefits when it comes to the financials and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So now, I do want to ask about like your experience, not just getting to obviously do all of this and everything that you do, but right now listening to you, I'm like, dude, his schedule is really busy, because I'm thinking, all right, you got the AEW stuff, you got the, your indie promotion, and then you got the Nightmare Factory, and then you're still, every now and then taking bookings in other places. So that's a lot that's kind of happening all at one point. I guess my question there is like, how do you handle it all and make sure that your life is pro wrestling?
Well, so I've always been a believer that if you want pro wrestling to be your life, you have to make it your life, right? And I tell that to all the kids. If this is what you genuinely want, at least until you get to where you need to be, you just have to eat, sleep, and breathe it, because it is one of the most difficult industries that you're ever going to be a part of. We have to do so many different things, not just, behind the scenes, but outside in the ring and just everywhere. I will say that ever since I made an agreement with Cody back when he signed the WWE ID deal for the school, that I wasn't going to coach there. So I have taken that off my plate. So that's good. But now I coach at the shows. So it's like, instead of going to the school twice a week, we normally do 2 shows a week. And then instead of them wrestling in a warehouse in front of nobody and me sitting there and critiquing, they do it in front of a live crowd, and I can kind of give them their feedback right there. But with that being said, yeah, the schedule, it's rough. I try to figure out ways to make it work. But again, when I was little, this is all I've ever dreamt of doing. So the last thing I want to do is leave anything on the table at the end and then turn around and say, man, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that.
That's definitely true. All right, I got 2 more questions for you. The second to last one is, when you think of the 2025 year for AEW, what have been like your favorite moments that you got to see, either for you personally or for the company?
Hangman winning the title, right, at All In, and Danielson coming out and Darby propelling from the roof. That was obviously, I think it really helped the company. Taking down the Death Riders that night. So, of course, and just that whole show, that spectacle that we had, that's probably the one that comes right to mind. But, yeah, I mean, every week there's something, right? Every week. And it's just seeing the progression of talent, like you said, like whether it's, like Kyle Fletcher or Harley or, even guys that, they go away for a little while, like Hook. Like he had to go away for a while. They took him out of the ops, and then now he's back. And I think he put himself right back in a prominent spot on the show. He did amazing in that 4-way match, but he's in a 4-way with Ricochet, Bobby Lashley, and Samoa Joe, right? These guys have been world traveled, seasoned veterans. And like I said to him afterwards, I mean, he didn't not belong in that match. You know what I mean? And that was something that I was like truly proud of. I thought he killed it. I genuinely do. And now, so things like that, like I said, that kind of really stands out in my mind. Obviously the major spots and stuff like that we replay all the time. And, Toni Storm just killing it every week. And a lot of people, now that she lost the title, they thought, okay, well, she's probably just going to whatever. And no, she just keeps. Sometimes you don't need the title, right? It's like, that's one of the things about being a major star in the wrestling industry, is that sometimes the title can help you and sometimes you just don't need it, and you can still be presented as the top act on the show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've all of those things that you mentioned. I'm like, yep. Remember that. Love that. So now my last question for you is a 2-parter. It is, I asked this to all my guests, their goals in professional wrestling, short-term, long-term, especially since we're rounding out the end of this year. And then also on the AEW side is, how do you think AEW can continue to take the company to the next level in the year of 2026?
Okay. My personal goals are just continue to be happy and have fun at work. And like I said, when there's opportunities like the one with AJ or something like that, I'm always ready, right? I know that's Cardona's line, but I'm always ready. I always have, at least as long as you give me a day's notice, I can always have my gear with me and so on and so forth. So for me personally, it's just continuing to go to work and keep hoping that, I do my part to make the show the best show it could possibly be. The second part was AEW
taking it to the next level, how they can take it to the next level in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's just keep doing what we're doing. I think that new rating system for the Nielsen ratings, right? Like a lot of shows have decreased a lot, whereas ours kind of really hasn't. Like we went to that 600 range, like maybe a year ago, and then now that it started, we're still around that same. So we really haven't lost that many on paper. And I think it's just continuing to, get the word out about us. Like I said, there's a lot of people that when they hear wrestling, the first thing they think is they don't even think there's wrestling besides WWE. It's like tissues, like Kleenex. You say, some people say, can I have a Kleenex? And it's like, well, you mean a tissue? Like, I don't have Kleenex, the brand I have. And they're like, oh, I didn't know there was a difference. So I think because we're so new, it's just getting that word out and just trying to, hit all the other, like, again, we have our hardcore audience, we have our fan base, and they're the most passionate you're ever going to find. But at the same time, like I said, I think it's just continuing to do stuff outside the box a little bit while still staying true to who we are and not, deviating from that, and just continuing. And like I said, I think we're on an upswing right now, and I think it's only going to continue. I think people are really understanding now that, okay, this is what AEW is. We either like it or we don't. And that's it. And we can't conform. We can't change what we do every week just because, someone else thinks that wrestling should be presented a different way. And like I said in the beginning, that's truly what AEW is. It always was. Like even like Joey Janela, I remember when we first hired him and I talked to Cody about it. It's like, well, he's elite at what he does. What does he do? He promotes himself. He gets himself out there. He does that, right? So it's like, well, there is a spot for that on their show because we think that is going to help us. And obviously when he left AEW, he's still doing phenomenals, right? So it's like there's so much talent in the world right now that it's just very competitive, and I think the more that we continue to just do what we do and hit home runs, it's just going to keep going forward.
I love that. That was a fantastic answer. Got me excited for the year of 2026 for AEW. QT, I want to thank you so much for taking all the time that you did to chat with us about everything. Really appreciate your time. For everybody here, please, QT, let the people know where they can follow you as well as where they can watch AEW, including Full Gear.
Yeah, I mean, Full Gear will be at a tailgate, be on TNT an hour before the show, 7 o'clock. Eastern time, then Full Gear from 8 p.m. until whenever we decide to be finished. I think a lot of people are like, well, this show, is it going to be long? It's going to be, just watch it. It's going to be one of the best shows you ever see. We do that every single pay-per-view. I'm on social media, just Twitter or X, just QT Marshall, and then Instagram, real QT Marshall. I don't really, I'm not the biggest on social media. I try not to be. It just seems like I just try to promote whatever we need to promote. But I don't really let people into my everyday life and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm around, I love meeting people. I love meeting the fans. So yeah, if you're ever around, you see me, don't be scared to say hi or ask me for anything. I try to do whatever I can to help as many people as I can. That's what got me to the position I'm in. So I figure it's got to be working.
Amazing. I'm going to post all of the links to that in the description box below as always. Thank you so much to QT. Thank you to everybody watching. Let us know what you thought of this interview in the comment section below. And do not forget to subscribe for more daily pro wrestling content. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Do not miss AEW Full Gear. Bye, everyone.